Let me talk to him. Let me talk to him.
Welcome to the Matt Schneidman Show.
That's a guy who is an intriguing one because he was an undrafted free agent.
Follow Matt on Twitter and Instagram at Matt Schneidman.
This is good stuff.
Or use the talk and text line at 1-414-799-1973.
If he can carry over what he's done in practice to games, then maybe we could start talking about, okay, Packers might have something here.
Now with Doug Russell, here's Matt Schneidman on the game.
Matt Schneidman Show Tuesday, January 2nd, off yesterday. So this is the first time we'll be able to kind of briefly digest and dissect Packers 33, Vikings 10, and then look ahead to what should be an absolute barn burner on Sunday at Lambeau Field between a Packers team that's won 5 out of 7, a Bears team that's won 5 out of 7. I think both teams have won 5 out of 7. Bears already out of the playoffs. Packers need a win and they're in. You all know the stakes. To set the stage for those who might have been sleeping under a rock this past weekend.
It was New Year's.
Who were maybe drinking too much over New Year's and just woke up. Packers need to win and they're in. They've gotten all the help they need. 9-8 would get them in, I should say. They can get in with a loss. They would need either the Seahawks to lose to the Cardinals, the Vikings to lose to the Lions, and the Buccaneers to lose to the Panthers, or the Seahawks to lose to the Cardinals, the Vikings to lose to the Lions, and the Saints to lose to the Falcons. So, a couple ways for the Packers to get in. Easiest way, obviously, because they control their own destiny, is to beat the Bears, and they are in. They are 9-0 against the Bears under Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur, however, cautioned multiple times after the game on Sunday night. None of the celebration, the hoopla, the great performances from Sunday night's game in Minneapolis matter unless they take care of business on Sunday. He said, none of this matters unless we take care of business on Sunday. His team is in an eerily familiar position compared to last year when the Packers reeled off 4 wins in a row and then came up 1 game short. All they needed was a win against the Lions at 8-8. And they were in. They lost 20-16. Now they face another division opponent at Lambeau Field, needing only a win. Aaron Jones said after the game, we're not going to let it happen again. He was definitive about it. Jordan Love said he remembers that sick feeling coming out of that game. I don't think this team keeping its focus on the task at hand is anything Packer fans need to worry about this week, even with what's happened the last 2 weeks and all the good vibes coming out of the locker room on Sunday night in Minneapolis. I think the head coach and the leaders on the team, Love, Aaron Jones, Kenny Clark, who said, we've got a matchup against a good Chicago Bears team coming. What more can you ask for? I think those guys and some others will have this team's head in the right spot.
Well, you just look at the way that they went out and just flat out executed. And Minnesota had everything on the line, just like Green Bay did going into that game. They were fighting for their playoff lives, and their easiest path would have been just to win a game because they had been struggling. Unlike the Bears and unlike the Packers, Minnesota kind of came limping into that game, and Jaron Hall was terrible in the first half, and there was a quarterback change at halftime. I don't know if Kevin O'Connell's being roasted for the Hall decision this week in the Twin Cities, but he might be. But I mean, the Packers just went out and they played their game, and they played against a team that is more than just Kirk Cousins, a team that even despite the fact that they've been not playing great football in the last month or so, still have some talent on that team. Obviously, they've got some great pass catchers, and the Packers went out and they imposed their will. They played an outstanding game, and they're just hoping to ride that momentum into the next week. The defense really stepped up because they had been rightfully so maligned over the previous couple of weeks. But this is where you want this Packers, certainly the Packers offense to be. And the defense, played an outstanding game again against a terrible, who played. I'm not saying that Jaron Hall is a terrible quarterback. I am saying he's a quarterback who played a terrible game, a terrible first half. So I look at everything that Green Bay has done this year, and I don't really have that much to pick on other than the defensive failures that we've all talked about over the course of most of the last month or so. And maybe it's gone on a little bit longer than that. But this team's offense is crescendoing at the right time. Jordan Love in his last 7 games has played like an MVP. Jordan Love has thrown 16 touchdowns to 1 interception over his last 7 games. That's how you carry a team into the playoffs. These guys that you've never heard of a year ago, guys like Bo Melton, guys like Tucker Kraft, these are the guys that are helping carry this Packers team into the postseason. I give their offense this year, overall, forget the last 7 weeks of the season. The offense this year, I give an A++ if I could give them a grade, just because of the growth that I've seen and all of the injuries that they've had to endure all year long. This is everything and more than I think any Packers fan could have possibly hoped from the Green Bay Packers, especially on this youngest offense in the NFL, youngest overall team in the NFL, but certainly the youngest offense in the NFL. It's been a revelation, and it gives and should give every single Packers fan that's listening to the sound of my voice right now hope for 2024 and beyond. Forget what happens in 2023, but there is still business to take care of against the Chicago Bears in I guess it's now 2024, but the 2023 season. I mean, if you don't look at this season as a smashing success, I can't help you. I don't know what football brand you ascribe to, but it certainly isn't anything that's rooted in reality.
Jordan Love's been phenomenal. That's where this starts and ends. I understand that, like you said, it's easy to kind of look ahead to the future, but the Packers still have to win a game. Jordan Love still might need to have, arguably his most signature moment in a Packers uniform on Sunday to get the Packers into the playoffs. If the defense plays like it did on Sunday night, he probably won't have to do as much, but we can't bank on that happening, especially against a more dangerous offense than the Vikings with Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins under center. Since week 9, Jordan Love has the second best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL behind Dak Prescott. Only 2 players in the NFL, Prescott and Love, have a touchdown to interception ratio above 4. Love's at 6.3, which is phenomenal. Protecting the ball, and he's being very effective. Now, there is a fumble in there, which doesn't count against a touchdown to interception ratio, but you get the point. He's also tied for second with, I believe, Matthew Stafford in EPA per dropback, basically, which measures his effectiveness or efficiency on a play-by-play basis when there's a passing play. Tied for second in that category since week 9, behind only Brock Purdy. Jordan Love's a couple bad games away from being in the MVP conversation. That's how well he's played the second half of the season after playing really well the first 2 games of the season. I understand that he's nowhere near the MVP right now. Lamar Jackson's very worthy MVP. Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott have probably been more valuable. But what Jordan Love has done the second half of the season has put the Packers in position to make the playoffs in his first year as starter, which would be a remarkable achievement in itself. Not only to make the playoffs, alone, but to give this young core playoff experience. That's invaluable for years to come.
Yeah, and that's why I made the point earlier. I mean, every Packers fan should look at 2023 as already, no matter what happens against the Bears, in my opinion. Yeah, you want to win the game. Of course you want to win the game. Of course you want to go to the playoffs. Of course you want to do it against your arch rival. Obviously. That having been said, I think every Packers fan should already look at 2023 as a success, and then 2024, 2025.
I disagree.
Do you? Okay, that's fine.
I don't think this season's a success. And sure, it answers the question of, do you have your franchise quarterback? Season's not a success if you don't make the playoffs.
I disagree with that completely. You want to see growth. I wanted to see at the beginning of the season.
Is this participation trophies that we're giving out?
No, it's realism. It's when you start the season, there are some teams that don't have Super Bowl aspirations. There are some teams that don't have playoff aspirations. There are some teams like the Carolina Panthers. When they began their season, did they think really that they were going to go to the playoffs? Probably not. I didn't think, in my opinion, and everybody can make up their own mind about it. I think that, it's a great question to ask. Do you consider this Packers team a success if they don't make the playoffs? To me, it's already a smashing success. Absolutely, without question, a successful season. Everything beyond that is gravy to me. Now, those expectations will change, obviously. That bar will be raised. But now I feel so much better in the future, 2024, 2025, and beyond, about that bar being raised. I think the expectations are going to be I hope not too high next year, but they're going to be a lot higher going into 2024 than they were 2023. And it's not about participation trophies for me. For me, it's about growth. For me, it's about, where you were on day one as opposed to where you are on day, 205 or whatever the, season, however many days there are in a season.
Sure, you can say it's a success in the regard of Jordan Love being the guy, but entering this season, I know we had different views on how this season would go, but I thought they would make the playoffs because I thought Jordan Love would be above average, slightly, I believe. And I thought the defense would really carry its weight. That was my prediction at the beginning of the season. So for me, I'm saying it wouldn't be a failure, but I don't think I can consider a success if they don't make the playoffs. Knowing what we know now, you can certainly argue that it would be a success because they found their guy, but that's successful maybe in the long term. I'm talking right now. You want to make the playoffs. Nobody in that building would say it's a successful season. Now, I understand that's their mentality and they're all about, no, we're not taking the moral victories of, finding our guy for the future. We want to make the playoffs now. And quite frankly, the position that they were in at 6-6, would you have said then that it's only a success if they make the playoffs with the schedule they had? Maybe not. But for me, maybe I'm a traditionalist. And not only because of what I said at the beginning of the season, but even without the benefit of hindsight, I think it's only a success in the NFL if you make the playoffs. And enough of this, we're playing for the future. That's loser mentality. How can not making the playoffs be a success?
I mean, you can call it loser mentality, or you can call it, what the design of the NFL is. The design of the NFL is that nobody has, complete sustained success for 30 years. And the Packers, by and large, with a couple of dips here and there, have had, at least in the regular season. Now, postseason success is something entirely different, but they've had sustained success for 3 decades, which isn't supposed to happen in the NFL. That's why you've got the salary cap. That's what, Pete Rozelle, so many years ago, back in the 70s, talked about parity between all of these teams. And that's, when they instituted the salary cap to, make sure that there weren't sustained dynasties. So you couldn't just stack up teams like they do in Major League Baseball, for example. And that, you still have to spend your money wisely. Sorry about your Yankees. But
what are you sorry about?
Well, because they haven't, you look at a team like the Yankees who spend $300 million, they haven't won anything since 2009.
I'm aware.
For I know you are. But they're a team, and the Dodgers are the same way, kind of, because they're a team that spends $300 million a year. And I know
haven't won anything since 1988.
Well, they won in 2020, but
that didn't count. The regular season was 60 games long.
Right. But you get my point. You still have to spend that money wisely. And I think that in the NFL, everybody has basically close to, as you're going to get in sports, an equal pot. Now, there are other non-traditional ways that you can raise revenues, obviously, but you have the salary cap that everybody has to deal with. And that's why you've got cap casualties every single year. The design being that everyone has a level playing field so you can make those decisions. And I think the Packers, by and large, have made pretty good decisions over the years, whether it was Ron, whether it was Ted. I had some questions about Ted and some of the ways that he ran the franchise, always looking toward the future, or Brian Gutekunst, who I think has done a pretty good job, a very good job, actually, especially in the draft. So sometimes you do build for the future. I thought this was going to be one of those build for the future years. And when you start the season, maybe it is the expectations that, spell success or failure in everyone's mind. Yeah, of course, if you go to 1265, nobody's going to actually admit to you that not making the playoffs would have been okay. But if they do lose against the Bears, I can't imagine that, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you go into Brian Gutekunst's office and he's still wallowing about not making the playoffs, or Matt LaFleur's office and still wallowing about not making the playoffs. This season has already been, in my mind, and I think theirs, when they really sit down and talk about it and think about it, an absolute success.
If they don't make the playoffs, though, that success involves a loss to the Chicago Bears for the first time in 5 seasons, with a win getting you to the playoffs. You're telling me that if Brian Gutekunst sits down a week after Sunday, after a loss to the Bears, he'll be okay with the season?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think that he'll be thrilled about losing to the Bears. if you look at the season as a microcosm of one game, probably not. But I think that he'll look at the overall season as a success. I really do.
Okay, fair enough. I think two things can be true. I think they can agree that this season set the Packers up for long-term success, which it did. There's no denying that, especially on the offensive side of the ball, while also acknowledging that it wasn't successful enough because they didn't make the playoffs. But we'll be interested to hear what Wayne Larrivee thinks. On the other side, we'll talk to the voice of the Packers, our weekly Tuesday visit. That's going to be my first question to him. Is this Packers season already a success, or do they need to win on Sunday to make it one? We'll talk to Wayne after the break. Stick with us right here on the Matt Schneidman Show on The Game.
The part of you that's drifting over me, and when I wake you're never there, and when I sleep you're everywhere.
Back here on the Matt Schneidman Show, Tuesday, January 2nd. One of my favorite times of the week. Our conversation with Wayne Larrivee is sponsored by Coal Investment Group, the retirement specialist, and Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. The first thing I'll say about Wayne is, so my mother and my sister, who is on her winter break during her senior year in college, flew from Connecticut. They love me so much that they flew from Connecticut. Well, they flew from New York City to Minneapolis, spend New Year's with their son. They came to the game, was able to spend some lovely time with them, and they came down to the first row of the stands about 2 hours before kickoff. And I was talking to them, then I turn around and Wayne's right there. And my mom loves when Wayne's on the show. So I was able to introduce my mother to Wayne. She loved that. But Wayne, I don't want to talk about that. I want to pose the question to you that Doug and I were discussing during the first segment. Is the Packers season already a success, or do they need to make the playoffs for it to be a success?
I think it's been a success.
Okay.
I think it's been a success because they have developed what appears to be a quarterback they can move forward with. They've answered that question. They've developed a lot of good young players on offense, and a couple on defense even have come to the fore. I think it is the fact that they have played meaningful games in December and now in January is significant, and I think that makes this season a success. I don't see any downside to this unless there are massive injuries to key people. I don't see any downside to this season.
Okay, see, I said it would only be a success if they make the playoffs because I think there can be two different things here. I think they can acknowledge that this season has helped them set up the future of the franchise, specifically on offense, which I think it has. But I also think, a successful season for this team is if you make the playoffs. For the 49ers is if you win the Super Bowl. Now, at the beginning of the season, I said playoffs, but that was more so because of the defense. Now the defense has been severely underwhelming. Yes, they've developed a really solid offensive core, it looks like. But I'm going to stick with what I said before the season and say playoffs, that would be a success, while also saying, yeah, they set themselves up nicely for the future. I mean, Wayne, when you got into this business, did you envision games like this doing it for? I mean, I said this is what we do it for. We're in it for the entertainment, the storylines. Packers Bears at Lambeau Field with a spot in the playoffs on the line. It doesn't get much better than that, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I recall back in 2013, Packers and Bears on the final week of the regular season in a one-game playoff to make the postseason. It was a de facto playoff game in Chicago, and that's the game that was famously won on the Aaron Rodgers to Randall Cobb touchdown pass. John Kuhn getting a chip block on Julius Peppers, allowing Rodgers to roll out, and he lofted that pass to Cobb, who was wide open as a result of blown coverage, and it won the ball game and got the Packers into the playoffs. It's one of the great moments in the Packers-Bears rivalry from the Green Bay point of view. So we've seen this. We've been there before. We were in the same position a year ago, all of us watching this team win that game against Detroit, and you're in the playoffs. And, so this is great. Last year, Matt, 8-8 felt to me like the team was tired and disappointed and came through a lot of garbage. And I understand they blew out the Vikings on New Year's Day, and that lifted everybody up. But I thought last year, this time, this team, that the team was disappointed to be 8-8 and needing to win the final game of the regular season to get into the playoffs. This year, 8-8 has a whole different feel to it, and this team has a different feel to it. There's a lot of positive vibe in this football team, and you see it.
You absolutely do. And I think one of the more remarkable things about this season is the pass catchers who have stepped up. And next man up is such a cliche, but Christian Watson has now missed 7 games this season. Jaden Reed and Dontavion Wicks have been banged up and missed some time. And the guys who have really stepped in, I mean, Bo Melton, who had been on the active roster for about a week because he was signed to it before the Lions game and then released the following Monday, so less than a week, comes in and has the first 100-yard receiving game of the season. It's like these young guys getting this invaluable experience of playing in must-win games and delivering. It's a great sign, not only for the present, but also the future. How surprised were you? Like, what would the odds have been before the season? I know we're not gambling men on this show, but before the season, odds set on the first 100-yard receiver for the Packers. Bo Melton's what, 9th on that list?
Yeah. I mean, first thing he had to do was get off the practice squad to be
Right.
in that conversation. So, you're exactly right. And to see, here's the thing that's so valuable. All right, this is a rebuilding thing, at least on the offensive side of the football. They're rebuilding this team. But, in a play and develop type scenario, you need to have not just play, but have some success. You don't have to win it all. You don't have to win every week, but you have to have success. And they've had enough success to play in these meaningful games, which I think is going to benefit this whole organization and certainly the players on this team in years to come. But no, I agree. Can't agree with you more on a lot of what we're seeing here. And I think that's why, to me, the season's been a success. Now, I'd love to see them beat the Bears and get to the playoffs. I think that'd be tremendous. But aside from that, to me, they've gotten a lot out of this season, regardless of what happens Sunday.
Something that I've been getting asked, not a lot, but more than I would like to, not because it's annoying, but because I would hope people are more intelligent than this. And I've seen a couple times people bring up Jair Alexander coming back when Corey Ballantyne and Carrington Valentine are coming off a solid game. And I don't know how many people have asked this, but I've seen it. It was a mailbag question today, and even then it's too many times, just once. Does Jair Alexander play over Corey Ballantyne or Carrington Valentine if he's healthy enough? Obviously he does. Has Jair been hurt a lot this year? Yes. Has he been great when he's been healthy? No. But in a must-win game, you want the guy you're paying $21 million a year for a reason. We can also say at the same time that Ballantyne and Valentine really held their own on Sunday night and have exceeded expectations when thrown into the fire this season because of Alexander's injuries, the Rasul Douglas trade, all that good stuff. But Jair Alexander needs to be back in the lineup. What happens in the future with him, we'll see. Because I think this was, and Wayne, we haven't talked to you about this yet because it happened on Wednesday last week, the suspension. But I really think this suspension is a last-ditch, drastic measure that the Packers had to take that they hope is a wake-up call for Jair. And anyone who says they're going to move on from him, guys of this talent have a long, long leash. If stuff continues to spiral and he still doesn't get in line after this last-ditch attempt of a suspension, then maybe we talk about moving on. But where things stand now, assuming Jair cleans it up, whatever's going on behind the scenes, and falls in line and becomes more of a team guy, there's no chance they move on from him. He's too good.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And the other factor in that is the contract. It would be a pretty big cap hit to move on from him after this year. Next year, what people are saying, are they going to deal him during the offseason? No, I don't think so. The cap hit would be, number one, a big factor. And number two, you're right, the talent, and they're trying to get this guy. And you don't know what's going to happen next year. We don't know how this whole thing is going to be constructed next year. But I'm with you. They're paying him $21 million for a reason. And you don't want to admit you made a $21 million mistake. And I don't think they're going to do that. And I don't think they made a $21 million mistake. The guy can play when he's right. He hasn't been right all year. But when he's right, we've seen how good he can be. And those cornerbacks, you don't just pick them up out of nowhere. So if you've got one of those guys, you got to find a way to make it work.
Without a doubt. I want to get your thoughts on something. I don't know if you saw this earlier today, but Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show, and he was talking about Packers-Bears and referred to the Packers as us. His exact quote in a longer, answer spiel about the rivalry was, if they can't beat us, is it a rivalry? And when I tell you I've never seen the fan base on Twitter more divided than they are over Aaron Rodgers' use of the word us, I'm being serious. There's half the people, it seems, who say, screw you, you want it out, which isn't entirely true. You're with the Jets. You're not part of us anymore. And then the other half are like, oh, that's so endearing. Aaron Rodgers still, has Green Bay in his heart. He did so much for this franchise. Of course, he can say us. I personally think it's fine. Where do you fall on this? I know this is maybe not something I was expecting to talk about on the Tuesday of Week 18, but for Aaron Rodgers to still feel like he's part of the Packers side of the Packers-Bears rivalry, I think that's fair.
Oh, gosh, yeah, absolutely. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Yeah, he's been a big part of Bears-Packers. And, he's been how many years in Green Bay? Was it 18 years, something
18.
like that? He's played longer than any player in the history of the franchise, which is 103 years old. He's always going to be us. I'm sorry, people get a little perturbed, and the same thing with Brett. When you think of Brett Favre, what do you think? Do you think of the Jets? Do you think of the Atlanta Falcons or the Minnesota Vikings? No.
Well, I
the
think of
Green
some
Bay
other
Packers.
stuff that happened after his career ended, but yeah, good point.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that, but you know what I'm saying. And Aaron is always going to be a Green Bay Packer. I don't care if he wins a Super Bowl next year with the Jets. He's a Green Bay Packer, and that's what he'll always be. And I think he believes that.
That's a good point. I think so too. He said on his weekly appearances with Pat that he still hopes the green and gold takes the North every year. That was in the context of the Lions clinching the division last week. But I can guarantee you, Aaron will be. Oh, I don't know what time the Jets play this week, but tracking the game in whatever capacity he can. He has been paying a lot of attention to the Packers this season. You can tell. I don't know if he misses the Packers. I wouldn't say that, but I think it's more so he's just happy for Jordan, still keeps in touch with people here, still, appreciates and likes a lot of people here, even if the GM is not one of them. Wayne, you said with 3 games to go, when I asked you when the Packers were 6-8, if you had seen enough from Jordan Love to say he's the guy. And you said, I still need to see a little bit more in the final 3 games. Have you seen enough, Wayne? Can you say he's the guy now?
Yeah, you have a right to jump on me like that. Yes, no, I have. The streak he's on right now, and anything can happen on Sunday. I mean, for God's sake,
Sure.
Everybody throws interceptions, but for the streak he's put up Aaron Rodgers like numbers in the last 6 weeks or so, right? I mean, he's got, I don't know, one interception and 16 or 17, 20 touchdown passes, something like that. He's exceeded, if I'm not mistaken, in 16 games. Hasn't he exceeded all of Rodgers' numbers from the first year Rodgers started in 2008? Doug Russell would know that off the top of his head.
What's that now? What do we got? I was typing out a tweet.
Doug fell asleep there.
I was listening with one ear. To be honest with you, I was actually. You know what?
With your bad ear.
The tweet that I was typing out right now is actually the question about Aaron Rodgers and whether or not he should be still considered us. That's exactly what I was doing. There's just a peek behind the curtain. So could you please repeat the question?
He was listening with one ear, his bad ear.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. No, we were just saying, hasn't Jordan Love, in terms of touchdown passes, I don't know, but the interceptions are about the same, and yardage, and hasn't he exceeded or
absolutely
Aaron Rodgers over a 16-game season?
Yes. Jordan Love's first year is starting. Fourth year in the NFL, like Aaron, has absolutely exceeded what Aaron Rodgers has done, both in wins and in the last 7 games, 16 touchdowns to 1 interception. That's incredible.
I believe Rodgers was 28 touchdowns, 13 interceptions in his first year starting. Love's at 30 and 11. And might I add, one of my Athletic readers brought this up today in my mailbag, the exact sentence I wrote from a preseason mailbag when I was asked for my prediction on Jordan Love touchdowns and interceptions this season. The reader brought up my exact paragraph, and I said Jordan Love would throw 31 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. With 1 game to go, he's at 30 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. I'm a genius.
I'm going to save that cut, by the way, Wayne, just for the next time we need it.
What? I'm a genius?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. It was a very good quote. I think you could stick it into a lot of different moments.
It's going to find its way into the intro.
It might.
I don't know what I just did.
Along with all of your wrong predictions from games this year.
What most of us were saying, I don't know, maybe 24 and 13, something like that, if he had a good year. But here's the other thing. Okay, Aaron had what was Aaron's? The record was like I don't know, 6-10 that year.
Yes,
16 games.
6-10. A lot of
Packers
close
are 8-8.
losses, but yeah, 6-10.
A lot of close losses, and the defense lost a lot of close games, giving up leads down the stretch of games, and that's why Bob Sanders, the defensive coordinator, was fired after the season. But here's the thing on this year: Jordan Love does not have the same experienced group of receivers, accomplished group of receivers that Aaron had in 2008. He does not have anything close to that. The defenses are about the same. Maybe they've certainly got a better running back, but the running backs have been banged up all season. So, there's a lot of things there that you look at Jordan Love, and I'm not saying he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, but is it the guy they can move forward with and win games with? And yeah, if you have a good enough team, he can help guide you to the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think he's shown all of that. I don't know what else he could do except go out and beat the Bears and have another 3 touchdown, no interception performance, which would give him about 7 for the season, which is just, again, we're talking about he's doing Aaron Rodgers like things, right?
Absolutely. And you think about a lot of Aaron Rodgers' signature moments as a Packer. A lot of them come against the Bears. This is what John and I talked about on our podcast today, Brick and the Stick, out wherever you get it right now. Jordan Love has a chance to author his most signature moment in his brief starting career with the Packers on Sunday, beating your fiercest rival, or maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't think it's a rival because the Bears don't really win. But doing it at Lambeau Field with a playoff spot on the line in your first season, Jordan Love has a chance to, he's already endeared himself to fans, but a chance to really, really author an iconic moment here at Lambeau Field, which I'm looking forward to covering it.
I am too. I mean, that's what's got me excited. I'm anxious to see what these young guys do in this situation. I know what happened last year. I know Detroit came in but I know what happened there. But I think, and the other guy, I don't know if you got a chance to visit. Well, you certainly did with Matt LaFleur after the game. It seemed to me like Matt was just like, he was on a different level. He was like, God, I can't wait. This is great. I can't wait to get into this game and get the preparation he was looking forward to doing and the team and everything else. I mean, it was just a whole different feel from what I saw a year ago at this time going into a game like this from this team. And I think, I'd be surprised if they don't have a really good week of preparation and play well against the Bears. And this Bears team is good, guys. I've been watching some tape on them, and they're a much better team. The Packers caught them at a good time. Opening day, the Bears had 10 new starters on their team, and they weren't ready to play that game. They really weren't. They hadn't put things together. It took them a while, and they finally figured out how Justin Fields operates and works best. And they finally figured out what DJ Moore can do, and they've got a running game, and it's not just the quarterback. And then defensively, when they made the trade for Montez Sweat, that changed everything on that defense all of a sudden. And they've been terrific. And, I was looking, I put their stat down. They're 84 yards a game rushing, their rushing defense. And I said, my gosh. So I looked up the 85 Bears, and they were at 82. I mean, the numbers are very close in terms of also yards per carry. I think this Bears team is like 3.7 something, and that Bears team was around 3.2. But you're talking 85 Bears. We're talking about the best defense I've ever seen in the NFL. And these guys are with them in terms of rush defense. So it's going to be a heck of a test for the Packers, because this Bears team has really come on quietly, but they've come on.
Heck of a test is right. Even though they're out of the playoffs, they can do some damage. And as Matt LaFleur said after the game on Sunday night, he thinks the Bears will want nothing more than to knock the Packers out of playoff contention. I bet he's right. Wayne, we appreciate you as always. We'll see you this week at Lambeau.
All right, guys. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy. Wayne Larrivee, as always, has been sponsored by Coal Investment Group, the retirement specialist, and Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. On the other side, tying up any loose odds and ends from the Vikings game and giving you a couple names to watch on the injury report this week. A lot of big ones, maybe more so than in weeks past, that the Packers will need to hope. Maybe not get back to full health, but get back to playable health for a must-win game. Stick with us right here. A little bit left to go on the Matt Schneidman Show here on The Game. Iron Jock wants to celebrate Braylon Allen and his career at Wisconsin. Now through January 7th, when you buy $50 or more, Iron Jock is offering 30% off of Braylon's favorite items with promo code Braylon30. That's BRAELON 30. Like the black hoodies, the Cardinal Heather long and short sleeve t-shirts, and the original low-cut socks in all colors, black, gray, and white. Go to ironjock.com. That's ironjoc.com. For those watching the stream, I'm not wearing my Iron Jock. I'm wearing a Syracuse basketball jersey because, as everyone knows, because they say if someone went to Syracuse, they'll let you know, especially if they went to the communication school. But I always say the communication school did nothing for me. It was all the Daily Orange, which is the student newspaper independent of the school where I learned everything. Syracuse plays at Duke tonight.
Is that a Jerry McNamara that you're rocking there? Nice. Is he still playing? Because I think he played for about 13 years.
Still playing. He's the lead assistant coach for Syracuse.
Okay. That tracks.
At Duke tonight.
He was a freshman when I covered them in the Final Four in 2003.
Really?
Yes.
So one of my favorite stories I've ever written in my journalism career came in 2016 when I was a junior at Syracuse. It was an oral history of Jerry McNamara's 2006 Big East tournament on the 10-year anniversary of it, where Syracuse won the Big East tournament as I think the 8 or 9 seed, became the first team in Big East tournament history to win 4 games in 4 days to win it all. And like each game, Jerry had some signature plays. So I talked to 28 different people involved in that week, from Jerry, his dad, Jim Calhoun, the refs, opposing players, like all that good stuff. And Jerry still follows me on Twitter. So I was a fan of his growing up. I was a Syracuse fan growing up because my dad went there. I went there, wasn't a fan when I covered the team, but now I'm a fan again. Big game against Duke. We're 10-3. Well, not we. I'm not on the team, but
you went there. You can call it we.
The reason I took off the sweatshirt is because there are Bears fans who would like to fight me. It seems that way because I tweeted something Sunday night during the game, the Packers-Vikings game, that is. And that tweet was Jordan Love already has more passing yards and passing touchdowns this season than any Bear has ever had in a single season.
Yeah.
Bears fans did not like that.
Did they?
Guess what? It's going to be called the Brick and the Brick podcast, not the Brick and the Stick.
Look at that. I know you've been doing the. I've seen the.
All right, now I can put my
push-ups.
sweatshirt back on.
Okay. So what part of it didn't they like? The truth of it?
I think so. I think people were saying, "Oh, we're always in Packer fans' heads." I'm like, I'm not a fan. I'm just a reporter. I think they're saying, "Oh, you got to worry. You're worried about Jordan Love passing yards and not making the playoffs. Wait till next week." I don't know. I'm not trying to get into the fan spat on Twitter because I'm not a fan. Okay, maybe I threw that stat out there as a little bit of bait. I admit I did that.
Sure.
But it's also a pretty funny stat.
Well, it was like my trolling of the Vikings last week, when I counted up the league championships that each individual team had won between the Packers and the Vikings, and then they combined 13. Tweeted that out, and there's some Vikings fans that didn't care for that.
Sure.
More division titles. Okay.
Little bit of a troll.
A little bit. Sure. Why not?
Okay.
Sports is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Don't take it too seriously.
No,
I certainly don't.
Don't take it too seriously. All right. With regards to the game, couple injuries to watch. Jaden Reed, who did not play in the second half. He's up for NFL Rookie of the Week, I think. Just playing one half. That's how good he was in the first half. 6 catches for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the yeoman's effort he put in to get to the end zone on his second touchdown shortly before halftime. He said his injury, which was a chest injury, happened when he fell awkwardly on the punt return, where he called for the late fair catch, got hit, refs picked up the flag, finished the half, obviously. Matt LaFleur said after the game, when I asked him, were you being cautious because you were up so much, or was he actually hurt? LaFleur said, well, we ruled him out. And he went for CT scans after the game. LaFleur said he doesn't know where he's at. I know Rappaport reported those scans were negative, those x-rays, and they'd be doing more imaging. Packers need Jaden Reed. That's for sure. Jaden Reed spoke after the game, so it wasn't that serious, I guess. But he's played through a lot this year. And Matt LaFleur said, if there's anyone who can tough it out during a game week, it's Jaden Reed. So I don't know if I should say expect him to play or don't. I guess we'll see if he's on the practice field tomorrow afternoon. But I would imagine, maybe I'm wrong here. I know this training staff can be conservative, but there's no more preserving guys for late in the season. This is it. It's a one-game season. Got to win this game. So I'd imagine maybe some guys who are 40-60 might be closer to 60-40 this week to play.
Yeah, and I remember that Aaron Jones also spoke after week 1, ironically enough, against the Bears, and he just said, yeah, no, I'm fine. It's just a little bite in the hamstring, and, he still had to sit out a few weeks. So I hope Jaden Reed's ready to go. I mean, he's such an important, and in his first season has become an integral part of everything that the Packers do offensively. So you're right. I mean, at the end of the season, it's like you're not really saving anything. This is it. Yes, you've got a potential playoff run coming up, but you got to get there first. And Jaden Reed's been unbelievable this whole season. I don't know that he's, who's the rookie of the year? Puka Nacua, maybe?
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud. Yep. There you go, down in Houston. He's had an incredible season. So it's probably not going to be Jaden Reed, but boy, he's been the Packers rookie of the year, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Then Dontavian Wicks, who didn't play on Sunday because of that chest injury. We'll see if he plays. Elton Jenkins and Josh Myers both look like they picked up nicks toward the end of the game. I didn't see Elton Jenkins, but Andy Herman tweeted out a clip of him kind of getting rolled up on and coming out of the game briefly. Now, those are two guys you need to watch. Christian Watson obviously has missed the last 4 games. Does Devondre Campbell come back? You're getting Jair Alexander back. I know that's not injury related, but man, it's week 18. They're banged up. Yeah, no duh. It's the NFL, but there are some really important ones for the Packers. And if you thought week 18's injury report was going to be any less of a CVS receipt than the past couple weeks, couple months, really, I got some news for you. It ain't. There's going to be a lot of guys on there. There's probably going to be a laundry list that are questionable for the game, maybe some that are doubtful. I will be interested to see if a guy like Luke Musgrave plays this week. He's practiced for a little bit now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he comes back to provide a little bit of a boost.
Is there anybody of the ones that are injured right now that they could most afford to not have? And maybe it's Musgrave because of the emergence of Tucker Kraft. I don't know. I'm speculating there. But what do you think as far as guys that are maybe questionable to return? Which one can they most afford to not have back if possible?
That's a good question. I'm inclined to pick one of the receivers just because they're a little bit deeper at that position.
Sure.
So I'll say Wicks, even though he's been very good this season for a rookie 5th-round pick. Watson and Reed, I think, just bring a little bit more to the offense. But then again, I don't know if Watson's going to be full go if he's missed a month, and Wicks has only missed, a game and a half. So I'll go Wicks just because of the upside that Watson and Reed bring. What do you say?
Yeah, probably just because of the depth, like you mentioned. I mean, Bo Melton came out of nowhere and became an integral part, or at least for a week, an integral part of the Packers offense. So I don't know where and when I say they, I mean Brian Gutekunst and his staff. I don't know where they came up with all of these receivers that have come up. And, as I put in one of my updates, and I think I said it earlier in the show, a bunch of guys you hadn't heard of a year ago. No one had ever heard of some of these guys that at least, the casual NFL fan, I'm not talking about draft nicks or anybody like that, but who would have thought that at the beginning of the season, you would get this kind of production out of a guy like a Tucker Kraft or a guy like a Dontavian Wicks or a guy like a Bo Melton, or, I'll even say a guy like Jaden Reed, who thought that, yes, 2nd-round pick, get it. And they've had an incredible run of great 2nd-round receivers over the years. But the impact that he's had this year, I don't even know that anyone could have predicted that, even as highly regarded as he was coming out of Michigan State. It's been just the development of these young players at the skill positions, specifically the pass catchers, to me, that's why, and I think Wayne kind of echoed the sentiment, that's why I look at this season already as an unmitigated, absolute success.
Normally, unmitigated is followed by the word disaster.
Yes.
I didn't know where you were going with that. Gonna be interesting to watch. They're back on the practice field at around 1:30, 1:35 tomorrow afternoon. Then obviously the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday week of availability. We'll have you up to date every evening this week with the latest you need to know from 1265 ahead of a massive game. There's no way around it. Packers can get in the playoffs at 8-9. They can get in at 9-8. What a story it would be if they can get in the first year under Jordan Love. And not only that, but beating the Bears to do it. That'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. unless I get kicked off air for showing guns on air.
I don't know. Somebody has to complain to the FCC first, and it wasn't. It was on the stream.
It wasn't
though.
something I said.
Right, but it was on the stream though too, because
that's a good
the
point.
stream, you can do anything on the stream. At least as far as the FCC is concerned, they don't. I'm
not going to do anything on the stream, but we appreciate you listening as always. Thanks as always to Wayne for coming on. For Doug, even though I disagreed with him, he's always great.
Hey, listen, people can reasonably disagree. I think it was a reasonable discussion.
And you know what?
Disagreement.
Shout out to Quick Trip for sponsoring the stream.
Hell yeah.
I was told it was just because 5 Wide is no longer happening, but I'll take it regardless. So thank you. We'll be back tomorrow. Peace out. Stream still going?